Chapter 13. The Cop and the Anthem. Soapy moved uneasily on his bench in the Medicine Park. When birds begin to fly in the south and when Soapy moves uneasily on his bench in the park, you can know the winter is at hand. A dead leaf fell in Soapy's lap. It was an indication for him that winter was coming. Now he knew that he would have to make preparations for the coming winter, and therefore he moved uneasily on his bench. Soapy's aspirations for the winter were not very high. He was not thinking of any warm regions in the south. All that he wanted was 3 months on the Blackwell's Island. 3 months of food every day, a warm blanket at night, and a pleasant company safe from the cops and safe from the cold. These were to Soapy the most desirable things in the world. For years the hospitable island had been Soapy's winter quarters. Just as his fellow New Yorkers made plans to go to Palm Beach, so did Soapy make his own plans for his annual visit to the Blackwell's Island. And now the time had come. The precious night 3 big newspapers, placed under his coat, above his ankles, and over his lap, had failed to keep him warm during the cold night in the park. So the island loomed large in Soapy's mind. There were a number of charity houses in the city. Soapy could go there and easily get his food and lodging. He would not have to pay any money, but Soapy's proud spirit hated to have anything in charity. Those people usually asked questions about one's personal life, who he was, where he lived, what he did, etc. And Soapy didn't like anyone to meddle with his private affairs, so he thought it better to be a guest of the law. Having decided to go to the island, Soapy at once started making plans to fulfill his desire. There were many easy ways of doing this. The most pleasant one was to dine at some big restaurant and then say that he had no money. They would then hand him over to a policeman and magistrate would do the rest. Soapy left his bench and walked out of the park. He came to a glittering restaurant in a Broadway street. He was shaven and his coat was quite good. He was confident that he looked all right from the lowest bottom of his coat upward. If he could reach a table in the restaurant, success would be his. The portion of him that would show above the table would raise no doubt in the waiter's mind. And for dinner, a roasted chicken with some grape juice thought Soapy would be all right. $1 for the chicken and a little more for grape juice. The total would not be so high as to invite any big revenge from the restaurant owner. Anyway, the meal would leave him filled and happy for his journey to the winter home. But as Soapy tried to get past the restaurant door, the doorman's eyes fell upon his old shoes and torn trousers. At once he caught hold of him and quietly turned him out of the restaurant. Soapy turned off Broadway. It seemed that this delicious way of getting to the island was not in his fate. He had to think of some other route. At the corner of the next street, there was a shop with a big glass window. Soapy picked up a big stone and dashed it through the glass. People came running around the corner. A policeman was in the lead. Soapy stood still, with his hands in his pockets. He smiled when he saw the policeman. "Where's the man that did it?" asked the policeman. "Don't you think I might have done it?" said Soapy with a smile. The policeman didn't take Soapy seriously. Men who break windows do not stay to talk to policemen. They take to their heels. The policeman saw a man running after a bus. At once he turned and ran after him. And Soapy, sick at heart, walked slowly away. He had failed twice. On the opposite side of the street was another restaurant. It was a very ordinary place. Mostly poor men went there. The food served here was very simple and cheap. Into this place Soapy took his old shoes and torn trousers. No one stopped him. He sat down at a table and ordered whatever they could get him. When he had finished, he told the waiter plainly that he had not a penny with him. Now call a cop, said Soapy. I have no money to pay. No cop for you, man, said the waiter. He called another waiter. The two of them picked up Soapy and threw him out of the pavement. He arose joint by joint and beat the dust from his clothes. Arrest seemed but a rosy dream. The island seemed very far away. A policeman who stood two doors away laughed and walked down the street. Was no policeman going to arrest him? The thought filled Soapy with a deep fear. He would have to pass another cold night in the park. After going some distance, he saw a policeman standing in front of a theatre. Soapy thought of making another attempt. On the sidewalk, he began to yell drunken nonsense at the top of his voice. He danced, howled, and raved. The policeman turned his back to Soapy and remarked to a passerby, "He's one of those college boys, noisy but no harm. We have orders to leave them alone." Soapy lost all hope. He stopped his useless yelling. The Blackwell's Island seemed as far away as heaven itself. In a bakery, he saw a man buying biscuits. He had set his umbrella by the door. Soapy stepped inside, took the umbrella, and walked away slowly with it. The man followed him quickly. "My umbrella!" the man cried. "Oh, is it?" said Soapy. "Then why don't you call a policeman? Your umbrella, why don't you call a cop? There stands one at the corner." The man slowed his steps. Soapy did likewise. The policeman was looking at the two. "Oh, I'm so sorry," said the man. "You know how such mistakes often take place. If you say it is yours, you can have it." "Of course it's mine," cried Soapy angrily. The man went back. Soapy walked along a road that was being repaired. He threw the umbrella wrathfully into a pit. He muttered against the policeman, who seemed not to arrest him. At last, Soapy turned his steps toward Madison Park. The desire to go back home is universal, even if the home is a park bench. But at a very quiet corner, Soapy stopped. Here was an old church. Sweet music of the holy anthem came to the ears. Soapy felt a sudden change in his heart. He felt deep shame over the sinful life he had been living. In a moment, Soapy made up his mind. He would pull himself out of the mud. He was still quite young. He could make a fresh start. The sweet music of the anthem changed Soapy completely. Tomorrow he would go into the city and find work. He would work hard and be somebody in the world. He would do honest work, and just then Soapy felt a hand on his shoulder. He quickly looked around. A policeman stood there, holding him by the collar. "What are you doing here?" asked the policeman. "Nothing," said Soapy. "You think I believe that?" said the policeman. Full of new strength, Soapy began to argue. "And you know what happens when you argue with a policeman?" "Come along," said the policeman angrily. Soapy was produced in the court the next morning. 3 months on the island.